Alright, let's not beat around the bush. Solid 5 out of 10. Maybe a 4. Look, I know it wasn't that bad. Okay, it wasn't as bad as people on the internet will have you believe, which obviously is always very, very vocal, especially if you go in the gaping cesspool that is Twitter. Need I say more? But no, it was a solid 4.5 maybe, even at that. Now, why is that? Now, this is going to be a whole review of the Fate collab. It's not going to be like, oh, let's go deep dive into characters and, you know, the story, like all the nitty-gritty details. This is just the one thing I think a lot of people aren't talking about. And I think this is where the real majority of the backlash and the complaints come from. I liked the story. Obviously, no story's perfect. It has its bad moments, of course. I really liked the story. I put off doing this quest because I wanted to watch more of Unlimited Blade Works. I know I said I liked the story as a Fate fan, and also, it's not a Fate story. It's a Star Rail Fate story. And obviously, we have to hold them to higher standards. It's just it's difficult. Because we gotta know what Hoyo are like at this point. And it's a billion-dollar company who've had more than a year to prepare for this. And there we go. But I've stalled long enough. Let's get into it. Also, hey, we got channel memberships now, so that's a cool thing. Maybe you go look at that if you want to, support me. We're not doing a good job. Wink. So here's the issue, and I'm going to prove it right now. It's simply the presentation. That's why the story gets so bogged down. It's an unforgivable, egregious thing that Hoyo seems to keep doing. And here's what I mean. Here's the full story playthrough, by the way. I mean, 3 hours, 43 minutes. That's pretty short for a Hoyo quest, okay? So here's what I mean. Huge shout out to CG Inferno for this, by the way. They didn't skip at all. I personally skipped. But here's what I mean. We're getting an introduction to what the Holy Grail is. And this is what I like about it as, oh, we're getting told what the Holy Grail is. And it's just this. There's nothing else, it's just this. And it keeps going on and on. We can keep skipping. Look, it's no wonder people were begging for a skip button. And having a skip button doesn't mean the story is bad, okay? It just means that when it drags on, you can skip. In fact, I had moments like that myself. With this, what's really nice is once they explain it really, really well, between Archer, Boot Hill, Lancer, more on that later. And then they kind of repeat it later on with Saber. And I'm trying to get as spoiler-free as possible, just in case you haven't tried it yet. But it's thankful for moments like that of, oh, we've already explained it. I can safely skip this because they're regurgitating the same points. But I shouldn't have to skip that because it's already been explained. And actually, once again, let's go find that. Also, this was really boring. Scott, this is the standard for Star Rail right now, which sucks. It's just a lot of backward heads turning, idle pose animation number 1. Hell, they didn't even have an old ulti stood up. That's how bad it is. Also, you play as Scott, and that's just nobody asked for that. But once again, the presentation during Penacony, we all loved Robin Boot Hill interactions. They really are. Boot Hill interactions with anybody is amazing. But this is the presentation, not the story. That's why a lot of people complained about the story, because it's so boring to sit through. But it's packed full of wonderful interactions and genuinely funny moments. It's a shame the Fate characters are only voiced in Japanese, so you can only play in Japanese. I'm a huge English dub player, and it only comes out in 3.5 where you can mix and match the voices. Anyway, this is Lancer's big entrance, okay? This is his big entrance. Not a cutscene. All in-game models for the Fate collab. Look at the presentation. He comes in, smokes a little bit, stands there. That's all it is. In fact, if we skip forward a little bit more, you will see Saber's introduction. Why couldn't they do this for Lancer? Why can't a billion-dollar company have more cutscenes like this. Also, you know, we'll play it in English. So you can see what I mean. And then just immediately back to... I can't even say low budget at this point, but there's no budget spent on this. They're just there. This is another example of the presentation being so bad, it detracts from the story being told. They're not even moving. Backs turned. Nothing happening. I loved this scene because it really explained for Star Rail fans who might not be familiar with Fate. It really explained, hey, here's what Fate's all about. Here's how it works. Here's basically the logistics of it. I can forgive this. This dialogue is forgivable for one very important reason. Oh, you never heard of Fate or watched Fate? Well, let's give you the quick rundown of it. That's what I like about it. I guarantee a lot of people skipped because it's... I mean, look at it. In fact, I want to get another thing. Do I need to say more? I can't say more about this scene. Great story, terrible presentation. Now, sadly, once again, I'm not going to play this part. This is just a quick little bit. I physically laughed out loud. Fuck off. Oh, no. No. Fuck off. I know people are disappointed by her appearance. I am too. In fact, I still am. That being said, I understand completely why they did this. And I'm not saying as a joke about, oh, $1 billion company, reused assets. That's not a joke. That's a serious... Like, you're $1 billion company. You can't spend just a little bit more to, hey, here's a unique model. Like, they did it for Lancer. Now, one of the problems is, later on in the story, we understand why she's like this. It's not, in my opinion, it's not a good reason, but it's all told so blandly. Also, once again here, it's just very... There's a lot of unnecessary wordage. This is what I mean, though. As good as the story is, it's still a Star Rail story at the end of the day. I know a lot of people were upset about this. In fact, I was at the time, and I still am. This is unforgivable. It's quite literally... From 114, it keeps going. So up until about here, it's an hour of non-voiced dialogue interactions. Except for Scott. Because, hey, we all love Scott, right? Everybody loves Scott. Once again, this could be a good example of the presentation being garbage. They presented it without being voiced for an hour. Once again, I understand... It fits in with the whole... I'm just gonna say it. So this Grady person is from Penacony's past. And his power is, hey, I used to be a silent movie producer. So he traps us all in his... I guess it's a... Lack of better terms, a reality marble. And we're all silent, except for Scott, which is great. There was no need for that. This entire thing, I skipped a good majority until the end because some people were asking me not to. Now, here's a big issue. Of, once again, the presentation really holding it back. Look at this dialogue. If you remember from Penacony, which hopefully you do. If not, I don't blame you. It was very, very long without the magical skip button. Adventuring was a slave. That's what this brand is here. And this really adds to his character and, wow. He used to be a slave, he understands being branded, or he understands using a brand to command power, or exert power over somebody. And he doesn't. That's really... It's little moments like this that get bogged away in the hour of silent garbage being presented. Now, don't get me wrong, when there's a cutscene, the cutscenes are great. In fact, no, I will have to play this in Japanese because, we don't hear a majority of it, okay?
志をもって命ずる。防具を解放し、聖杯を破壊せよ。お任せよ。X カリバー。
But here's, once again, a good example of the presentation just stealing the spotlight from the story. This was actually a nice conclusion. I enjoyed this conclusion. The problem is, look at them. They're quite literally doing the same pose. Archer's been doing this for like 5 hours at this point. Okay, this is majority of what Archer did. He's just either arms folded, arms down. Look, he's fucking... Look. The one time he stops the pose... goes right back to it. That's the engagement they're giving. Here's the epic conclusion to Archer's involvement in the Holy Grail collab. Oh, sorry, the Fate collab. No grand cutscene as an exit, not even for Lancer or all three of them. Just fade PNG. It's just the same thing happened for Lancer. In fact, the same thing is going to happen to Saber. Look, this is a nice moment as well. It's all very... I can't explain how disappointed I am with the presentation. The story was honestly good. Obviously, no story's perfect, some parts are skippable, but it's not as bad as people are saying, okay? Yeah, it's a perfect... Honestly, the only thing keeping me from giving it also, that was... Saber's big exit. You know, the grand cutscenes she had for all of 5 seconds. Yeah, that's it. Which, interestingly enough, I know I'm getting off topic here. There was only 2 real Fate references. The first being Saber's meeting with the Trailblazer, mirrored the same as Shuru's, and then they called Archer a hero of justice. Those were like the two big. Oh look, they said the thing. They said the thing, let's go! It's a Fate collab! No. In fact, here's the worst thing, okay? Misha, yes, rip Misha, also hi Misha, was a servant for Pom Pom. This whole exchange here, this whole exchange that happens, is more expressive and presented better than the past 3 hours, 37 minutes of everyone else who just stood there. Right at the end, for a little throwaway gag. Once again, in terms of the story, I get it, I understand it. The presentation, holy fucking shit. I'm going to amend my previous ranking. It's not a 5. It definitely is a 4. And not like a good 4 either. I'm being generous with a 4. I understand people are going to disagree, that's perfectly fine. Look, at the end of the day, you're going to have your own opinions, I'm going to have my own opinions. That's perfectly fine. This is the internet. I trust that you watching now are capable enough of a calm, collected, and civil discussion. There are only 3 ways to respond. There's the first one of, you leave my $1 billion company alone, how dare you? 2, this is the worst thing ever, and nothing will ever come close, how dare they think they can get away with this? And 3, yeah, I understand it's got flaws. I understand it's got good points as well. I want to talk about this in a nice, calm way. You want to be number 3, okay? You don't want to be one of these 2. You don't want to be seen as an extreme, okay? And also, it's really embarrassing if you're one of these 2. At the end of the day, people like what they're going to like. I just want people to stop saying, this is the worst thing to ever happen ever to Star Rail. Because it's not. It's not the Banana and Monkey Quest. Like, come on. Nothing can ever be as worse. As a Hoyo fan, it's about what I expected. In fact, as a Hoyo fan, I'm pleasantly surprised. I say Hoyo, I mean Honkai Star Rail fan. I'm pleasantly surprised the story was told as well as it was. Oh no, the story was as good as it was, but it was presented exactly how I thought it would be. As a Fate fan, I am wholly fucking disappointed. I mean, very disappointed. There was almost minimal Fate. It felt like a Trailblazer continuance mission. You know, the little mission between patches to get you transferred over. It felt like one of those. And as a fan as a whole, you can just skip it and get a free Archer. That's what's great about it. I just don't want people to not talk about the presentation. It makes the world of a difference. Look at Wuthering Waves. Look at their story. They've got a skip button. And this is why the skip buttons are so important. If you have a skip button, but you don't feel like you want to use it, what does that tell you? Now, I used the skip button when dialogue carried on too long. It repeated itself again. See, here, okay, I hate that I'm going to say this. They should have used the black screen white text to just be like, hey, we've already recapped this for... Actually, no. Here is why we needed a skip button. So earlier in the story, Archer and Boothill, Archer, Lancer, Boothill, Adventuring were having the exact same discussion, by the way, about how the origins, why they can't sustain themselves, why they seem weaker. And that was great. It was nice. It was over. It was sudden. Like, there we go. It explained everything. Now they're doing it again, but we already know this. So, yeah, I can skip. Those are valuable times and justified times to use it. It's just a shame that I found myself using it a lot more than I should have during this entire collab. Anyway, that's about it. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. And, yeah, enjoy Free Archer for like 6 months before he's power crept. Saber, though. Saber will get better in time. Mark my words. Trust me on that. Anyway, stay refreshing. Peace.